Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rangers Review Morning Briefing. It is Thursday, the 18th of July, and it's a gruesome twosome once again. Myself and Stevie Clifford on the Yoki to talk all things Rangers. How's it going, Stevie?
Yeah, good, mate. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is well today.
Just a quick word for our podcast sponsors before we get stuck into the Rangers news. Not much is happening, it's fair to say, but we'll try and get through half an hour talking about all things Rangers. Before we do that, MPH Boilers are our podcast sponsors, folks. You know the drill by now. If your boiler is on the blink, these are the guys to call. The award-winning family-run business covering all of mainland Scotland. They've got those Viessmann boilers on offer still. Right, I think what we'll do is, because there is a distinct lack of proper news to discuss, we will invite you to send your questions in, folks. Pretty much what we do with the usual Q&A show on the extra channel. So if you want to send your question in, myself and Stevie will get through as many as we possibly can. We'll touch on, I've seen a player that has been linked. He was linked earlier in the window before we get stuck in, Stevie. Seen it on Twitter this morning as NM gets in touch. Says, seen on Twitter this morning, we have agreed personal terms with Traore from Ferencváros. We just need to sell someone to pay for him. Now, it's a player, Adama Traore. No, not that one. He was linked earlier on in the window. 29-year-old winger, Mali international, plays his football in Hungary. A reported fee, I think a few weeks ago, it was said that it would cost around about €4 million. There is a video I did, folks, with a former Ferencváros player who spoke in great detail about him. I'd urge you to check out on the YouTube channel. I'm not too sure how credible the source is online this morning, Stevie, but he is someone that's been linked before. It's a winger. I would be a bit apprehensive about paying that amount of money for a 29-year-old, I've got to admit. Don't know too much about him. He's a decent enough player. Had injury problems last season, by all accounts. I think he missed about half the season. So, not entirely sure about this one.
It's an absolute no from me, Derek, straight away. 29 years old, allegedly. So this is an alleged deal. And it's a no from me on the basis of what people are saying. £4 million, 29-year-old, or €4 million, 29-year-old and stuff like that. Have we learned absolutely nothing then on that basis? Because this is what we did last summer, and look what we're dealt with now. So an absolute no. I wouldn't even consider it. And I appreciate the links aren't exactly strong. It's just rumours at the moment, so we can only judge it on that. But sometimes these rumours and the weird rumours are the weirdest ones. I was a bit pleased and relaxed about it when it says that we need to sell a player in order to fund it. Well, that's not happening anytime soon, is it? So, I think we're safe here. So, it's a no from me, Derek. Definitely not. We need to get away. You know, if the deal was right, then I would possibly change my mind and have a look at it closer and stuff like that. But we should not be spending £4 million on anybody like that. It's not where I want us to be, and we need to learn lessons from previous mistakes in the transfer window. He would be a lot of money, and he would be a lot of wages, I'd imagine, as well, Derek. So, it's a sharp no from me, I'm afraid.
It's not someone that I'm overly excited about. Aldo agrees as well, says 100% Stevie on that one. So, it was a player, as I mentioned, folks. He was linked previously in the window. That has been numerous players linked with moves to Rangers. It has gone relatively quiet, it's fair to say, with regards to incomings. There's a great piece, incidentally, on the website that Joshua is wrote just on the comments from Philip Clement at the summer training camp over in the Netherlands when Chris spoke to him, and on the transfer issue looking towards the long term, as opposed to his comments when he said that the easy thing would just be bringing experienced players, but that is a short-termism. So it's a great piece, in depth. Go and check it out. I'd urge you to do so. I think we've seen that, Stevie, with the signings that have brought in so far. We just touched on there. We don't want to be spending a lot of money on a 29-year-old. The guys that have been brought in are for the long term, with the view of selling him on for profit, I'd imagine.
Yeah, that's definitely it. As I said yesterday, and I think we need to realise this, or we think we need to keep focused on this, and I certainly do, because I was talking about it the other day, that just because of the way it is at this moment and the feeling around certain things, it doesn't mean the business we've done so far isn't good business, or it
Yeah.
isn't promising business. You know, Clermont and Coppin have got history in buying players, developing them, selling them on for big money. It's happened fairly regularly at their clubs before. So, you know, Coppin was involved even in bringing Malik Tillman and stuff to PSV and things like that. So they've got an eye for a player. They know how to do it, and yeah, it's a different level, because even at their clubs like PSV, they can spend the bigger money on getting these players in at youth level so they can get a better standard. But at Rangers, they've maybe had to go down a few levels and try and find these players to try and move them on. But there's no doubt in my mind that they've signed the likes of Hefty and Igamane and Ciala because they are the ones that they think they can turn into something. So I'm still as what's the word? I'm still as hopeful and still as optimistic as I am when they first arrived that they'll just be as good, and that'll be what happens. And I think that maybe what's happened a wee bit, Derek, is, you know, lack of bodies in, lack of bodies out, especially out. And then the whole debacle with the stadium and everything else, people have just got a wee bit unhappy elsewhere, and it's projected onto the business we've actually done, which I still maintain is good business and is a good profile and things to be going for. So I'm still happy with that, Derek. I'm still looking forward to seeing these guys play. I'm looking forward to seeing Connor Barron in midfield. He was somebody you and I sat and spoke about last December, March, everything. We spoke about him regularly, didn't we?
Yep.
So he's somebody that we're looking forward to seeing, and by all accounts, he done well against Ajax and things like that. And I do think he'll bring that energy and brightness. Shove him in next to Diamande and things like that. Then, yeah, I think that we're looking okay with regards to the bodies we brought in. Business isn't finished, absolutely not.
No.
We need a lot more. I still think we need another half dozen in and another 6 to 8 out the door. So there's a lot of work to be done in the coming weeks, Derek. But I remain quietly confident that work will be done. Yes, it's slow at the moment, but I know what we're trying to do, and I know what we want to do. So with that in mind, I'm quietly confident on that.
Okay, right. There's been a host of questions being fired in. First of all, Andrew gets in touch. Stevie, Andrew says, I just joined the WhatsApp group. Thank you for doing this. Much appreciated. Yeah, you can join the Ranger Review WhatsApp group, folks. The link is in the description below. Stick that in your browser, and it should direct you to the WhatsApp. You can keep up to date with all the latest news, all the articles in there and what have you as well. So, thank you for your kind words, Andrew. Just on the issue of spending around 4 million quid, James says, if we're going to spend 4 million, I'd go for Seema, and we discussed him yesterday as well. Player wants to come, club want him to come. Issue is finance at this moment in time. If Rangers can barter Brighton down to 4 million, then certainly I would be welcoming Abdallah back up the road. Just speaking about valuations, and we're not in any way wanting to invite offers for this boy, because I think he would really do well with Rangers. I thought he was a real bright spark last season, Stevie. And Brian gets in touch. I says, what price would you value Dujon Sterling at? What price would you... A player that came in for nothing from Stoke City. Stoke wanted to sign him permanently last summer. Rangers enticed him up to Ibrox. Dujon Sterling, Stevie, a valuation for him if you were to sell him?
I'm going to sit right on the fence and dodge that question, because people always moan at me when I say stuff like this. But I wouldn't suggest that the value of Dujon Sterling would be as high as what people might want it until he has a sustained period of basically consistent availability and performance, because he's constantly injured at the moment. So on Dujon Sterling, you would want it, Derek. You know what I mean? You would want to be sitting this time next year and be saying that he's had a brilliant season, really strong at right back, at centre, midfield, wherever he plays, and be saying he's a £15 million player. That's what you would want. At the moment, he's nowhere near that because he's consistently unavailable. Yeah. So we talk about injuries and we talk a lot about players Dujon Sterling picks up knocks just as much as anyone else. So I'm hoping that with a good pre-season and things like that, that he's able to get over that. But even then, he's missed the games in Holland and stuff, isn't he? Because he had a knock. So, and he's on a different kind of cycle. But that's a concern for me with regards to Dujon Sterling, especially if, and here's where it gets tricky for me. If you're going to sell James Tavernier, which I think I've made clear, I think is the best thing at the moment.
Yeah.
I think it's maybe time for him and a few others to go. He's always available, Tav. Like, he's always, if you suddenly become, dependent on Dujon Sterling at right back and he has the same injury record as you did last week, then, you're going to need to go and pick up Lee Hodgson again to back him up. So I would, I'm just a wee bit slightly concerned about that. 5 million to 8 million is probably what I would have said in my head at the moment. But I think even then, that's slightly on the optimistic side because of his availability and everything else. So that's where I am with it, Derek. I would love to see Dujon Sterling have a massively powerful season and just be available and robust and everything. It's probably the same with Redvan on the other side. In fact, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So, Redvan actually, weirdly, was coming on to a game, wasn't he? Right up until that spell round about Kilmarnock away, I think, when Cortez got injured. And then he got injured
with Redvan again, isn't it?
Yeah, he got injured as well. And I thought that if he could really have kicked on for that couple of months towards the end of the season, we'd be looking at people wanting to buy him now and be looking at offers in the region of 7-8 million. So we need a big season from both fullbacks this season. And I do expect Dujon Sterling to most likely start as a right back this year. So we need big seasons and big availability from both.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen him much. Well, did we see him? We seen him at right back at any point last season? And did he come on for Tav at one point, or was there an early cup game he played at right back? I can't recall him playing there.
I'm only going to guess this because I can't remember slightly, but I'm sure he started Morton at home in that 2-1 game at right back, and everybody was going crazy about his deliveries because he got to the byline a number of times and then was whizzing it over. So I seem to remember that being a theme, and then obviously we went a goal down. Things got kind of changed up, didn't we? So it was only latterly because of injuries he moved into midfield and things like that. But I'm not sure he started too many at right back.
No. Just for Shona, who gets in touch, who can't see the WhatsApp link, here is I've just stick it in the comments, Shona, for you. So if you click that, that should take you to the WhatsApp group there. Right, let's get to some more points that are coming in. This one, and a lot of viewers are messaging in with regards to this, and apologies, there was a few yesterday that I missed. Aldo says, Derek or Stevie, any news on Raskin's injury? Of course, he left the match at the weekend in a moon boot, which wasn't the best. It's fair to say you always fear the worst when you see players in that. Hopefully it's more precautionary than anything else. It was a rash challenge from the Ajax boy on Raskin. Whether he features at the weekend against Man United, I'm not too sure. Let's just hope it's not a serious injury, Stevie.
Yeah, I'm waiting on something on that, Derek, so I won't say too much about it. But I don't think you'll see him at the weekend, but we'll just need to wait and see until we get clarification on that.
Yeah. These things, I mean, we talk about the injury situation last season, and Clement did say that the personnel changes have been made in the department, but for challenges like this, you can't factor that in, can you? But when these sort of contact injuries, rash challenges in pre-season, it's not the best, is it?
No, it's not. And we were fairly unlucky last year with the amount of injuries we actually picked up during games and stuff as well. When you think about Danilo, Danilo's 2 challenges on Danilo that cost him the best part of his season, or 3, 4, 5,
was one.
almost all of it. You know what I mean? And we've had a lot of bad challenges on that. So yeah, I mean, Raskin's that type of player that would he's so busy that he does get involved in so many kind of tackles where you try and win the ball back, like ball recovery tackles and things like that. And I can see why he might be on the end of a couple of kicks and things like that as well. I think Connor Barron is probably the same type of player would be involved in a lot of them as well. So yeah, it's disappointing to see him get injured, but I'm not worried about it being, you know, a 6 month job or anything. I'm quite relaxed about it.
We'll get an update. Of course, we'll be at the game on Saturday. I think Joshua is covering the match for us, folks. So we'll get an update from the manager on what the extent of the injury is. Now, let's move on to another question that's come in, an interesting one here from Who Cares? He says, could we give Lawrence a year extension on a contract? Because if not, we need to sell. I don't think Tom Lawrence will be getting this. Stevie shakes his head. If that's you, Tom, then good to have you tuning in on this Thursday morning. Tom Lawrence won't be getting a new deal, Stevie. And but again, he's one of a number of players at the club that is on a hefty wage, and it's going to be a struggle finding a club that's going to match that. And listen, I don't blame him if he's happy just sticking around at Rangers. He was a player I was really excited when he initially signed. Unfortunately, his injury sustained. Talking about injuries there, the injury sustained against Ross County, I think, August a couple of years ago, has put paid to his Ibrox career pretty much. You've seen in flashes what he can give you, but not enough.
Yeah, I mean, I would just...
He has to leave.
The thought of giving a year extension just because we cannot get rid of him just terrifies me to my very core, to be honest, like that. If he walks away at the end of his contract for nothing, then fine. I'm not even in the remotely bit bothered at all. This is a problem, and I'm going to sound like a moaning, greeting-faced guy that sits and repeats his record, but there's a reason why guys like Ben Davies and Tom Lawrence and everybody else that's floating about, probably Kieran Dowell and guys like that, come up here and are quite happy to sit and not even bothered if they don't play. And this is a problem with the squad. When your squad is so full of average players that are just sitting about on top money, then there's nobody pushing anybody, Derek. Like Tom Lawrence, it doesn't matter to Tom Lawrence if he plays or not, because he's capable, Tom Lawrence. He's capable of moments. Like, is he really that good enough? No, not really. If he was getting 10 grand a week, you'd be quite happy with him sitting there in the squad, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And he would be fine to come in and play in some games. But Tom Lawrence, to me, he isn't the answer in regards to, where we need to go and things like that. So no, I'm not giving Tom Lawrence any sort of extension. I would be selling Tom Lawrence and a number of other players in this squad. No offense to them, and they're quite entitled to sit tight and enjoy their contracts and stuff like that. But when you see the discussions around Sam Lammers and being on 30 grand a week and all sorts of stuff, and he's refusing to go anywhere, then Rangers need to make sure that this situation doesn't happen again. It can't. We need a complete root branch kind of rescheduling of our whole squad and finances and everything else, because there's too many average players sitting about getting too much money, and it doesn't push. Then you've got the first team players aren't getting pushed because they're not hungry enough to get in the first team, and the guys that are backing up should be your Mega Manis, your NCLs, your stuff like that, your Connor Barons. All these boys should be the ones that are pushing the first team guys who need to stay in the team to get their wages and all. And it's just at the moment, I don't think there's incentive enough for these players in our team, because they're getting their money and they're going home with it anyway, and that's why none of them are in any rush to leave. So, no, I'm sorry. Tom Lawrence, a year extension.
A hard no on that one.
Oh, no, it's not even a hard no, Derek. It's way beyond a hard no.
Well, just off the back of that, just what you're talking about there, Stevie, Denzel with the points on it. Off the back of that, it says, does Stevie think this season is coming is inevitably turning into one of transition? Not saying that we won't compete, but being away from Ibrox plus the squad status, what else can it be? It's probably a view shared by many about heading into this season, Stevie. A bit of trepidation, it's fair to say, about the changes, not only with the squad, but playing at Hampden is not ideal for how long, who knows. But I don't think we're going to be thrown in the till before a ball has been kicked. But Rangers up against it, do you think?
Yeah, I think we're certainly up against it at this moment in time, but things can change quite quickly, Derek. I think if we were about to go into the last day of the transfer window and we were sitting here like this, then I would be saying that I think we're up against it. There's going to be a transition kind of season. What I would say is, and there's a part of me that thinks we'll need to batten down the hatches a wee bit, and there needs to be a siege mentality to get through the first maybe quarter or so of the season, because I think it will be quite bumpy. I think, especially as Denzel says, being away from Ibrox and being maybe away from there for a wee bit of period of time and having to play games and then having to bed in a squad and stuff like that. Yeah, I think that can be problematic, definitely. I think it can be. So there's a part of me that's kind of bracing myself a wee bit for that. We need to get through the first 4 or 5 games of the league, and we need to be as relatively unscathed as we can.
Yeah.
And that's going to be difficult, but we just have to do it. Like, we can't throw in the towel and say it's all right, it's going to be a transition, we'll comfortably get second, or we'll be, let's focus on battling Hearts first. We can't talk like that. We need to concentrate on aiming to be as successful as we can. And yeah, there needs to be a wee bit of a siege mentality at the start, where we just get through the first couple of months and things like that. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not willing to just throw in the towel. And yes, listen, at this moment in time, I think squad-wise and all that, I can understand why people are fed up and looking at it that way, Derek. But, bookmark this or do whatever you want to do. We're on the 18th of July. The squad at this moment in time will not be the same. It will not be remotely close to the same on the last day of the transfer window. So there's movement to come, and I remain kind of focused on that. And let's see what the next few weeks bring. And I think that once that starts to happen, once movement hopefully starts to happen, I think people will be more confident about what we're watching.
Yep, good question. Thanks for that, Denzel. This is an interesting one from Moose. He gets in touch. Based on what we need this summer, if you could sign 3 SPFL players this window, who would they be? Right, so Lennon Miller would be one for me. Another one would be, I like David Watson from Kilmarnock. I'm discounting Celtic. So other than that, Miovski. There's my 3. Stevie?
Watson, Miller, Shankland.
Scored last night, of course, as Hearts were thumped by Tottenham at Tynecastle. The Shankland one, is that what Rangers? I mean, the heavy talk about him in the winter transfer window at the start of summer. Everyone was saying still get Shankland in. Could you see that? Could you see that one happening, Stevie? Realistically,
no.
So there you go.
I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened by now. I think it's such an obvious one that should have, if there was any interest and if we had wanted to, then it would have happened by now. But that doesn't mean that, the question was, who would you sign? Your 3.
Yeah.
I quite like the boy at Dundee as well. The boy in midfield. I thought he was fairly decent against us. Yeah. And I'd be tempted to look at these boys and because of, and listen, without sounding funny, there's maybe a right back somewhere that we can get that could back up, that could be steady. And, Rangers teams, like look at Kurt Broadfoot, for example, right? Wasn't the best technical player, but attitude, application, always available. It's guys like that you need in your squad, right? To be able to win leagues and do things. And I'm sure that if I properly looked and went through the lists and everything else, then yeah. And Majovski's a good chance, but I'm just discounting the fact that you need to deal with Aberdeen and stuff.
I know.
And I don't like dealing with wee teams when it goes to signing players and all that. So I'd rather just avoid that. You know what I mean? So I don't want anything to do with them. But Liam Miller, Lennon Miller from Motherwell, is my first, second, third choice. I think he's fantastic. I think, £3 million is an investment absolutely for us. But if we could find a way, then yeah. I really like Lawrence Shankland. I don't really care what anybody says or thinks about it. He would rattle in 20 goals for you. And he would be a nightmare because he'd be slow and we'd moan and we'd hate it.
It'd be like Chris Boyd Mark II, Stevie.
And you'd be like, Shankland hasn't touched the ball in 30, and by 35 he will have scored, and nobody really cares ultimately. So it would be really great if we could find, the ways to get these kind of players in, because I think they're important. And, it would be lovely to find another Kenny Miller, for example, within Scotland somewhere, because, again, Kenny Miller, was sensational for Rangers, and some of his, like, I think he had about 19 spells, and some of the play here was incredible, wasn't it? So that season where he left and went to Bursaspor at kind of January time, I think he had nearly 20 goals. You know what I mean? And he was absolutely sensational. Some of the goals he was scoring as well was incredible. So Kenny Miller was a guy I really liked. And that's the kind of player you have to unearth, isn't it? That's the kind of guy you have to find. You need the stable squad guys. Your likes, your Broadfoots, like, mate, see, growing up, Derek, you always had guys like Alex Cleland, for example, right, who could always fill in, who were always available, always 6, 7 out of 10s, and always performed really well. Not massive mistakes, and I'm sure they made mistakes from time to time, but, you know, they were always available, could always fill in. These are the kind of guys that we need in our squad, instead of guys like we've got now who are getting 30 grand and don't really care if they're playing or not. We need the guys in there that are really bursting a gut to want to play, to want to improve, and know what it means, and understand what it's like to play for a club like Rangers.
Yeah, big fan of Alex Leland at Rangers. Never let.
I love that.
You could rely on up until you come up against Juventus, posting the likes of Del Piero, Vialli, Ravanelli, and the likes. But that aside, he was a top drawer. I was a big fan of him. Questions coming in. Potential players that would like to see at Rangers. William White says, "What about Armstrong?" This is Danny Armstrong. Bolton are very keen on Danny Armstrong, so that'll be a real coup for them if they can pull that one off. Decent enough player. Again, it would have to be a deal that works for Rangers. I don't necessarily think he would improve the first team a great deal, but in terms of that problematic right wing position, I think he would be a decent option out there. And just staying with the Bolton theme, Maka gets in touch. Says you're looking forward to seeing the number 37 playing for Bolton, Derek. Yes, I am, Maka. Cannot wait to see the old salute being displayed once again. So yeah, very much looking forward to seeing Scott Arfield once more. Couple of points before we wrap up today's show. Stuart Balmer with a point here. He says, realistically, Stevie, what players will be sold? Because I very much doubt we're getting rid of Lammers. Someone asked me this the other day. I think it was on a Q&A show. And I said the players probably realistically you're selling. Said, or getting rid of on loan perhaps. Dessers, Lammers, Hadji. I said Lawrence, Cantwell, Goulton, Tavernier. Would you agree with that, Stevie?
Yeah. It's probably more in there as well. Adam put up a thing. I wonder if I could find Adam's post, which had the squad.
Yeah.
We had the squad, and I kind of went through it, and it was horrifying to look at, but it gave you a better idea, right? Okay, so Ben Davies, Goldson, Tavernier, Dowell, Lawrence, Cantwell, Hadji, Lammers, Scott Wright. Question marks over Rabbi Matondo, maybe. But Cyril Dessers, if you wanted to really argue it, but he wouldn't be my first out the door, I think, in pecking order. I think, like, genuinely, you could name 10 players that you wouldn't be overly upset with. And I know people are saying it's doubtful that we'll get rid of this one and that one. I don't think the market's moving yet. So I would be not unhappy to see any of those go, Derek. I still think there will be movement. I still think big players will leave in the coming weeks. So I think there's work to be done.
Yeah, totally agree. And we'll round off with this. Just a player we were just discussing there, Stevie. Conor Barron. Ross says, have you been impressed with Conor Barron so far? Do you think he's ready to play every week domestically for us? He does have a lot of experience domestically, of course, with Aberdeen. The manager did. It was interesting when he says that Nsiala and Igaman weren't ready to step in and sort of play immediately, but the likes of Barron, I think he said Jeffrey as well, were ready to come in and feature from the off. How much do you think he'll play this season, Stevie?
Well, ideally for me, Conor Barron would be pushing a first choice number 6 to play, and he would play quite a lot of game time, but not necessarily start every game. That's where I would pitch him. But Conor Barron could easily be somebody that impresses so much that he does play on a week-to-week basis. So I think Conor Barron has got room to impress us with his performance levels, and I think he's capable of that. I think he's a busy player. I think he's got lots of energy. I think he could do well for us, and he's a player that I'm really glad he's here and somebody that I wanted in. So, is he ready to play domestically every week for us? Yeah. I mean, he's got experience in Scotland, doesn't he? So I think he is. Yeah. Whether or not I would want him to play, I'm not so sure. I do think that he's the type of player that can really help Diamandi. I do think he's the type of player, Derek, that will get a lot of game time. Do you want him really to be your first choice number 6? I think he would have to prove that. Yeah. I think he's capable. How do I say it? I definitely capable, but I need to be convinced that he's ready to do that. I think in time, genuinely, I think in time he will settle to be a really strong player for us. But I'm reluctant as such to put. I mean, do I think that Jeffy would come in and start ahead of Redvan and stuff like that as well? It's the same kind of position, isn't it? Or not the same position in the squad, but it's the same type of question. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. The good thing about that is, right, Conor Barron could play at the moment, but I genuinely think with him, there's room to grow and massively improve. He's a really solid and really impressive player for us. So that's where I am with it, Derek. Hopefully that kind of explains it a wee bit.
Yep. Thanks for the question, Ross, and thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in and for getting your questions. And apologies, folks, if I've never got to your point that you want me and Stevie's response to. But yeah, thank you anyway. Those of you that are extra subscribers, I spoke to Yaz, who is an editor of Man United Zone, big publication on Twitter and Instagram, about Saturday's friendly and what we can expect from Man United and what their expectations are for the season ahead, what sort of players we can expect to see at Murrayfield at the weekend. Are you going, Stevie?
Should be. I'm a busy man, Derek. You know what I mean?
How do you see it going? I mean, it'll be a good workout for the team. A bit. Man United, I'd imagine, will be playing some of their big hitters. But what do you see happening there? Be good to see a good man.
Yeah, well, you know, I'll go along and expect what I always do, 4-0 to Rangers, who are Man United kind of thing. So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? But listen, I think what's more important genuinely is that we get a wee bit of the feel-good factor back.
Yeah.
I think we're really all struggling at the moment. So let's see what the weekend brings. I wasn't too impressed with some people during the Ajax game. Looked like some are going through the motions. And whether or not that's because in my mind, I've made up my mind on certain things and I'm looking at players and thinking, yeah, you're just kind of going through the motions with it. Hand up, not really caring about free kicks being taken. Need I say more? That kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm looking for brightness. I'm looking for positivity. I'm looking for some good football. I'm looking to start seeing some kind of shape and resemblance under Philippe Clement. And I know that's really difficult when he's got players that he doesn't want to be there and players that he still wants to come in. But I am looking for just generally a wee bit of encouragement. Yes, results don't matter in pre-season. But when you look at last pre-season and our defeats and our performances, I think it would be nice to really see some encouragement and something that we can take into the coming weeks because, Birmingham next midweek, and you're looking for the same. If you start to get the goals in, start to get some feeling, players getting 90 minutes, players getting 75 minutes, that kind of thing, Derek. So you're just looking for a build-up and a continuation of pre-season. But for us, I think we need to find a feel-good factor somewhere.
Yeah, I'd like to see that also. Right, that'll do us there, folks. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll speak to you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Bye for now.